can see the bigger picture. I can see how I'm connected to the bigger picture, which, by the way, requires leaders to have clarity on what the strategy is, provide clarity on how people see themselves and how they contribute to it, transparency and vulnerability, and to hand over control to things that are not their thing that they need to be in control of. Welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with Michelle. And yes, you're not seeing things, but a blast from the past, Roko, who we were chatting before I hit record, and I've missed you. I've
I've
missed being
missed you
with
too.
you. So I'm excited for this. And what's really cool is when you and I were chatting and I said, so what's the topic? You didn't miss a beat.
Oh,
You know
as
exactly
usual, I
what.
have lots to say.
So I'm super excited about this one. And so I'm going to start us off with a quote, but you're going to start us off with a quote. And I've got another one that we may weave in at the end. So and our topic is around this, what was it? Self-determination theory.
Yeah,
Which I had to look it up on chat, my buddy chat. And you did a lot of Googling,
I
right? The verb
did.
that you do. And so we'll start us off with a quote and then we'll kind of unpack this because I'm as excited about it as you are. So hand it over to you.
Okay, so I'll start by saying I was at a conference. I was sharing with you, I was at a conference last week. It was the CV Transform. I'll give them a plug. It was a great
Uh-huh.
conference, cardiology conference. And one of the guest speakers was talking about patients complying to treatments. And he was presenting this idea of self-determination theory. And if you apply it, the concepts of it, then you can get patients. Patients will be motivated to comply with the treatments that were being proposed. And so, of course, I immediately started Googling in the session, what is self-determination theory? I've never heard of this. And when it came up, the first thing that I saw was it was about human motivation and this idea of creating conditions supporting the human experience. And there are three conditions in this theory that support that. One is autonomy, the other is competency, and the third is relatedness. And so as I started to Google it, of course, you know me, I'm all about coaching and developing people. I'm all about problem solving. And I don't know if it was confirmation bias or what, but all these things just kept coming forward. I'm like, oh my God, this is what we talk about all the time. This is what we talk about. And so I just thought it would be such a great conversation to have because we talk about employee engagement. We talk about how to motivate employees to get the work done or to be engaged. And leaders aren't doing the work, but they have to influence the people who are doing the work. And how can we create a better condition for the people who are doing the work to feel valued, to feel motivated, that what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing is important, that fills their cup, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so as I was reading this, I just thought, oh my God, this is the topic to talk about with you. And I got really excited about it. Really excited about
So
it.
what's your quote?
Okay,
What's
so
your
my
quote?
quote is,
Because it's a
and
funny one.
yeah, I was gonna save it to the end, but I'll share it now. It says, people often say motivation doesn't last. And I would agree with that. It doesn't. Um, and then it says, well, neither does bathing. So that's why we recommend doing it daily. And,
Yes.
and I agree with it. So I don't want this to be about, the frequency of or the mindset that you have to do it every day or you have to practice it every day. I really want it to be a conversation about the contents of these three conditions of autonomy, competency, and relatedness, because those to me are the meat. If we can create the condition where people feel they have the autonomy, like they are doing something where they have control over what they're doing, as opposed to being controlled, like
Mhm.
micromanaged, and feeling that they have mastered something and people give them acknowledgement around that mastery.
Mhm.
And then feeling connected, not just connected to the work, but connected to the people they work with and connected
Mhm.
to the organization. I think that's the meat behind how do we create those conditions? Because that's where the magic is to me.
Well, and it's so funny that you talked about, "I don't know that we need to do it daily." I'm gonna say BS.
Well, yeah,
It needs
it
to
does.
exist daily. It needs to have an awareness daily, right? Because 'Cause you're not as a leader, "I'm gonna create this condition on Monday, and then Tuesday, it's not gonna exist, and then Wednesday, it'll come." Yeah, it needs to be every day. It needs to be
It does.
consistency.
It does need to be able I just meant that starting the conversation with what does it even mean to give someone autonomy? What does it mean to acknowledge someone's competency or create the condition where someone can gain
Deve
competency or
make
mastery?
Yes,
Yeah,
develop, gain it,
yeah.
the connectiveness, and when I go back, and I have to agree with you because even though we've called it the self-determination theory, right? Around it is what it comes back to at its core. It's the individual that has control inside themselves
Yes.
to be able to step in and do this. So yes, while leaders for the vast majority, they have a responsibility to develop this in people to where it can grow, right? To where people can step in. And it's not that they're making decisions for the strategy of the organization if there's not their role.
Mhm.
But we give them guardrails, right? To say, hey, within these guardrails, with the job that you do, here's the autonomy that you have. It's like when I go to Target, let's say, and I mean it's been a long time since I actually stepped in the store because I order stuff online, it just gets delivered to me,
We're
right?
not getting paid by Target to say
Yeah,
that.
no, we're not. But we could be. We could be. But if I go to Target and I've gone up and the price is off, I'm looking at it and they have the autonomy to change the price to what it is real time.
Mhm.
They don't have to call over a supervisor for someone to do. And I've watched that change take place because that wasn't always the case. How does it make that person, the cashier who's checking me out, feel?
Yeah,
Very empowered.
yeah,
So now you've got the customer standing in front of you and they're able to do that. So I think it's the autonomy within their role. So it's not being unreasonable and people are going crazy. And I go back to the greatness video, David Marquette, right? It
yeah,
wasn't that you got people running around like crazy with their heads cut off. No, they're operating within the guardrails of the role that they have.
yeah.
Competence is about their ability to actually do stuff and it requires the brain.
Yes.
So they go hand in hand, right? So
Yeah.
you develop the confidence, you give the people the opportunity to do it. And then the connectedness, it's about the fact that I'm not on an island. All right. And I understand that if I were just to do my job and no one else did their job and we didn't check in and coordinate, guess what? Massive epic fail.
Right?
So the connectedness is the fact that I can see the bigger picture. I can see how I'm connected to the bigger picture, which by the way requires leaders to have clarity on what the strategy is, provide clarity on how people see themselves and how they contribute to it, transparency and vulnerability, and to hand over control to things that are not their thing that they need to be in control of.
Yeah.
And it can be scary as crap for leaders to do,
Mm.
especially if they've been rewarded for doing it the opposite way.
Yeah, yeah. You've just described the shingo model, right?
Yeah,
So align, they talk about align, that's the relatedness. Have clarity around what it is that we stand for and how you connect to that. The enable, right, is the autonomy. You are setting the stage and creating those conditions, the environment, giving them what they need to become empowered. But the individual has to take ownership
hmm
and accountability to be empowered,
hmm
execute on their competence that they've been
hmm
hired to do. So you just described the Shingo model, which I think is again why my mind was like, oh my God, this is what we talk about every day. And generally, when I'm in a coaching session, these are the three things that people tend to get wrapped up around, that they get stuck around. Either there is a misalignment with their core values and they don't feel connected to either the
Mm-hmm.
work, the people, or the organization. And so they're stuck and don't know how, are grappling with that. Like, how do I go forward knowing that I'm not aligned? Or
Well,
maybe they don't even
or
have the awareness that they're aligned, right?
or disconnected to the goal that got
Yeah,
cascaded down. Because I've
yeah,
had leaders that the goal cost got cascaded down. They're like, we can never hit that.
yeah,
We can never hit that goal. How do I motivate my team? We can never hit that goal.
right. Remember when we first rolled out zero harm? Zero harm in healthcare? What? But it's like, but yes, you can have zero harm. I can remember my time in Auburn. I won't call out the name, but the leaders were like, there's no way. There's no
Yeah.
way we can prevent CODIs. And, it was a mind shift. And we did
Mhm.
that exercise around, what led you to the belief that you can have no harm around CODIs? And then what
Right.
would you need to believe in order to have zero harm? And when we did that exercise, it really did open people's mind and we're able to relate then to that goal.
Mhm.
And lo and behold, sometime later, they went 2, 3 years without any
Mhm.
CODI, and that was when I left. So, I mean, I don't they
Yeah.
could still be without CODI, I don't
Yeah.
know, but it was
Yeah.
amazing, and what a gratifying, feeling for them, right? Because it was all about their own
Yeah.
competence. It was all about having the autonomy to adjust and make decisions about their improvements, about
Mhm.
their work. But they first had to start with that relatedness to the goal.
Mhm.
They had to
They had to
shift their
believe it was
mind shift.
possible.
Yeah,
Yep. They
yeah.
had it was
So
so
it's
funny because it's the statement would be, right, and you think about Paul Harvey back in the day, the rest of the story, right, is we can't possibly have zero harm. The rest of the story is with the way we currently do stuff.
right.
So you're absolutely right. So part of the thing is to flip it and say what needs to change. To your point, part of it's the belief that it's possible. Part and it's so funny because one of the leaders is like, we can't possibly hit this goal. What space are you playing in right now?
Mhm.
Because you're trying to hit a goal in a space that you're playing in that, guess what, is no longer your space.
Yeah.
So what space can you play in? I think back to strategy, right? Is that if you've been the premier forever, and now the organization's made the choice that you're not going to be the premier anymore, but you still got a really great solid product, what space do you play in where you can hit
Right.
those goals?
That's right.
And it completely unlocks people because we get in this thing of we don't finish that sentence.
Yeah.
We can't
Yeah.
hit it with how we currently do
Do
stuff.
it. Yeah.
So
So how
what
can
needs to
we
change?
change?
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So do
So
I.
it
Go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
No, so I was when you talk about that stuff, I think about connectedness is not just about the human factor of people, but it's the, do we feel at our core that it's possible,
Mhm.
right? Because that will stop us too.
Yeah.
The other part that I think about is I go back to Cy Wakeman and she talks about the engagement and the accountability. What we need to be focused on and what you're talking about is developing accountability. And
Mhm.
accountability is all that stuff in the self-determination theory, right?
Yeah.
Is you
Yeah.
have someone who's determined, who has confidence, who's got connectedness, who's got, what's the other one?
So autonomy,
There you
connectedness,
go.
and competence.
So autonomy, connectedness, and competence, those are accountable people,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
accountable people are engaged. So if we go after what Cy Wakeman's talking about, if we go after engagement without accountability, we have entitlement. And that's the hill and the mountain, if you will, or the cavernous, vast abyss
Mhm.
that we've been trying to bridge this gap because we've been focused on engagement without any of the other stuff.
Yeah.
And we have people showing up accountable, and then we blame them.
Yeah.
We created this condition.
Yeah, it's that's why even though it's called self-determination, there's a component of leadership's responsibility to create the conditions to where you can have an individual accountable and demonstrate these things. And that's why I go back to Shingo, right? I mean, it was just brilliant how they said it, right? In the sense of leaders' role is to enable,
Mhm.
individual's role is to actually execute. That's the
Mhm.
empowerment. To take that self-motivation and say, I get where we need to go. I have the confidence and confidence to do it, and
Mhm.
now I'm gonna do it. And
Mhm.
I'm empowered to do it. Right. So it's just like it's just beautiful
I
that they
know,
all
and I'm gonna go
together.
back to one of the
It's
key
like,
things, right? This isn't about a bunch of people in boats rowing in different directions, right? I'm gonna
mhm,
go back to like Sam, my daughter, when she was on crew in college. You had what, 8 people in the boat, right? They weren't 8 people in 8 individual boats.
right,
They were 8 people in one boat,
right,
rowing in sync, right? And when you get that, the ground that you can eat up is crazy
right.
compared to individual people in boats.
Yeah. So I know
So,
we say it sounds simple, right? But it's not.
well, it's
Obviously,
not
it's
brain
not.
surgery.
Yeah.
It takes intention.
It takes intention.
It
Yeah.
takes
And it takes
intention.
practice. And it takes practice. And I think for me too, it's like as a leader and a coach, I'm always thinking about like, how do I create that? Like,
Mhm.
what would I need to do in order to enable or even understand, does this individual even know or have awareness to
Mhm.
what autonomy really is or what it would look like for them as it relates to the work, right?
Mhm.
What does competence look like? I mean,
Mhm.
competence comes in all different
Mhm.
ways, right? And the connectedness, because my relatedness to it and their relatedness to it may be different. And
Mhm.
so how do we do that? And for me, I think it always comes back to just the questions, right?
Mhm.
Coming and being curious about it, but like what other things would leaders need to do? And so just having that individual thought around what might I do to create that?
So it's interesting you say that because the response that I have is it depends,
Mhm.
because it depends on what current state is.
Mhm.
So you may have leaders that um well-intentioned, and I'm not dogging leadership because this is how it's been role modeled, is they step into leadership position and we have a belief that we need to identify the problem, we need to identify the solution, we need to then we're not going to even get our team together until we know what we're going to do about it, right, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And then we wonder why there's not buy-in and support, and we have all this swell of rebellion and resistance to what we're doing because we're well intentioned in this stuff. So if we're a leader that's been our style, right? We're siloed thinking, well intentioned, we want to take care of our people, this is my job, which by the way is super stressful, right? I think I encourage people, the place to start is this. Yeah, you can think about a solution about this
Mhm.
thing that you heard about, but you don't lead with that.
Right.
Get your team together. Talk to your team about, hey, I'm new at this, I'm trying new, whatever it may be. And share with them what you're up against. What is the thing, the problem, if you will, that you're tasked with solving? What is the situation that got handed down to you, right? Whether it's we need to do more with less, there was a decision made at the top of the house. No, by the way, wrap your brain around that thing before you dog the decision that was made at the top of the house, right?
Mhm.
But this is made, and here's what we have to solve. We've got to figure out, and I'll just make one up, right? Is we have the holidays coming, so we got to figure out how to do holiday coverage. And oh, by the way, the resources that we used to have to help us do that, we don't have them anymore, right? So people were loaning us people, and those people got pulled back. Do I solve that myself? Yeah, I've got some thoughts, but I need to involve my team in this.
Mhm.
because my team needs to understand why the organization made the decision they did, right? So that they've got some awareness. And so we can come together as a team and start brainstorming ideas and
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah. What I loved about what you just said too is the thought that I could, because I have the competence to make the decision on my own and take action about that, but understanding my place within the team, within the microcosm of our
Mhm,
culture organization, right? And what is really my role in this? And my role is to bring these people together
mhm,
and lead in that way, right? So I think you're right. I think you always have to understand what's your current condition because
mhm,
every organizational culture is different and autonomy, competence, and relatedness is going to look different in
mhm,
each one of those cultures. And so you have to look at what your condition is and what truly is the culture of that organization, either
mhm.
what it wants to be or what it actually is. But understanding that I think is important.
Well, and I totally agree with you. I think the other thing that comes to mind for me is one of the big barriers that can get in the way of engaging frontline teams or, having the problem solving, solutioning, if you will, happening where the information sits. So, right where the people that do the job is an organization's reluctance to share information that's happening at the next levels up.
Mm.
Because you can't expect people to step in and make really tough decisions or informed decisions if they don't know what's happening.
Right. What I heard you say is that in those situations, information's going up, but it's not coming down. And so the
Exactly.
people that are at the front line are making decisions without all the information.
Exactly. So then
Yeah.
what happens is they end up saying leadership doesn't care about us, the organization doesn't care about us, all they care about is money, da 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 da. No. So when we start that dialogue happening to where people understand the space we're going to play in, why we're going to play in that space, what we're up against, the gaps that we really have to close. So I go back to SWOT analysis, right?
Mhm.
Understand why this matters at this time
Yeah.
to be able to understand it. I don't mean that you're going and freaking people out because there's going to be information that you just can't share. But there's going to be information that's critical to share that people understand what they're up against because they're going to tell themselves a different story. And when they tell themselves a different story, you can forget the relatedness piece, okay? Because they're not going to play ball because they think it's something. And believe me, it's not going to serve you the story that they're going to tell themselves. Right? So I think that's one of the main things is to be able to get over this. We have to withhold this information
Yeah.
about everything from the top of the house because I don't that's not true. It's just
Yeah.
not true and it doesn't serve you and won't move the room forward.
Yeah, transparency is key and understanding how much and how to be transparent with those
Mhm.
people. Because I know we've had conversations in the past about how transparent do senior leaders need to be. Because if you're, oh, woe is me, the sky is falling,
Yeah, no.
then you could do the opposite of what you're trying to do, which is motivation. And so you have to be able to craft that communication in a
Mhm.
way that is giving them the information that they need, but at the same time, still showing that there's hope and, there is a vision and we are moving
Yes.
forward. We're not,
Yes.
the
And
sky
one of
won't
those
fall
things
down on
is
us.
no, and the self-determination theory piece where you've got competence and autonomy and relatedness, right? That is at every level of an organization
Yeah.
because it's in individuals at every level of the organization. So it will look different at different levels. And so when we have competence, which can translate into confidence,
Mhm.
we need to be able to articulate that to
Yeah.
people when it's real and so that it will land with them. And when we go as leaders and we're transparent about things that we're up against, but we can cite we're going to do this, this, and this is so critical and dependent on you to be able to do this. people aren't in the back of their minds, their spidey senses aren't going up of what are they not telling me?
Mhm,
What are they
mhm.
hiding from me right now?
Yeah, yeah,
So I think that's part of it is that people can then step in, and when you're being transparent, people can then start to see themselves not only in the gap that exists, but in the solutions, countermeasures, if you will,
yeah,
right, that are being proposed, and they can go, okay, this, and this, I can do that.
yeah.
And I think Chrissy Buford's great at
Oh my gosh,
when
yes.
she was, at identifying that so that it's that translations for a leader too, right? Because
Yeah,
people in the front line aren't sitting at the table or have the perspective that leaders at different levels in the organization have. And so it's important to set it in a context in a way that people can relate to it and they can go, okay, I get it. I get it. And not freak them out, to your point.
yeah. So I'm gonna take a left turn because as you were talking, of course, some word prompted my thinking, and then I was
Oh,
like,
I
one of the
love
things
that.
when I was researching this stuff over the weekend, I was like, oh my God, that resonated as well. And it was under the competence piece
Yeah.
of this theory and the idea of acknowledging the competence. And the one thing that stood out was there's an uncomfortableness with saying, I don't know
Mm,
something, right? And we don't acknowledge that. And that as we were mentored by Margie through A3 thinking, that was one of the key takeaways that I had through it
mhm,
is getting comfortable with saying, I don't know,
mhm,
and here's what I'm going to do to learn,
mhm.
right? And having the Sandersons of the one ups, the senior leader of the
Yeah.
world, saying great and acknowledging that competence to say and vulnerability to say I don't know and here's how I'm going to learn it, right?
Mhm,
Because that is growth at its best,
mhm.
to say I don't know and here's how I'm going to learn it. And
Um,
I just was like, it just filled my heart as I was reading that because I was thinking, yes, that feedback, that acknowledgement, and that promotion of being able to say it again and again, but knowing that this person is gonna do something to learn it was just, I think is
the
key.
honesty, and the honesty in it, right, is
Yeah.
actually freeing. So it's like it's come up a few times recently, but I remember back when I first stepped into the role of the director of, the Valley North Improvement Team, right? And so we're pulling three teams together, right, with different leadership, different backgrounds, and all that stuff. And I remember talking to the team because it was around information around this transparency piece, right? And I said, if you come to me with a question, the answer will usually land in one of three different areas. One of them I know, and I can tell you, and I will tell you I know, and I'll tell you. Another area could be is I know and I can't tell you. I can't share it right now. I'm not at liberty to. But I'm not going to tell you I don't know.
Mhm.
I'm going to tell you I have that, but I'm not at liberty to share that right now. And the other area is going to be I don't know, but let's find out. And I think it's really important for leaders because that's a commitment I made to the team.
Mhm.
So that the team isn't wondering, does she know and just not telling me?
Yeah.
Or leaders are uncomfortable saying I don't know and they make something up,
Yeah, yeah.
you
And because
know?
that's how they were promoted, right? A lot of
Exactly.
us have gained, climbed the ladder through experience because we did things well and we're perceived as having the answers and
Hmm.
being able to achieve things, right? And then, but they think that that's the case that you have to have that all the time. And I
Yeah.
think when we promote that belief, we actually stop growth
Hmm. The whole
because
fake
then
it till you
people
make it.
stop being curious. They just keep pulling from the heuristics of things that they've already
Yeah.
done, as opposed to exploring what's being done right now, what could be done differently.
Well, and you're role modeling for people that as a leader at this level, you can't say you don't know. You have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
Or leaders come up, they don't answer the question directly. They answer some other question, right? And it's like people know. So it's like be transparent with your team.
Yeah.
Tell them these are the three things, and I'm going to tell you. And I think that's very freeing. The other part I want to say another quote because it's around the autonomy, competence, relatedness piece. It's from Benjamin Franklin. I was joking with
Of
you
course.
beforehand.
Our
It's
old Ben.
my buddy Ben. My
Your buddy
buddy Ben.
Ben.
Um, Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I may remember. Involve me and I learn. And I think that is the thing that we're talking about here, Roko, as far as leadership and stuff is how do you create the space that your people are more involved in not just one aspect, but the cycle
Yeah.
of the learning, of the experiments, of the doing, of the everything. Because what you're then is you're creating leaders that literally could step in and do the role that you're doing. And oh, by the way, they would actually want to.
It truly is the win-win
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Everyone grows, everyone wins in
Yeah.
this situation.
Yeah. I agree.
Thank
Thank you for
No,
this.
thank you. I'm so
Uh,
excited. I'm so excited you agreed to want to talk about this because I was
oh,
just
yeah, of course.
it just it just lit me up when I was like, "Oh my God, this is just
I know
amazing."
everything. No, I'm excited, and we just don't be a stranger.
I
I want to
know.
be able to connect with you more. I was telling Roko beforehand. I've been doing shorts and everything, and it was like dusting off, the archives of back in the beginning because we're at podcast I think 150,
Oh my God.
and so this was back at like 28, right in the beginning. And it was just so cool to be in the room again. And
Mhm.
so thank you for making the time because I know you've got a lot of spinning plates in your world right now. So, Roka, what are one or two things you want people to walk away with around this topic of, I'm going to read it, self-determination theory. So it's the autonomy, the competence, and the relatedness.
If any of this has even remotely sparked interest in you, go out there, learn more about it, start having conversations about it, because I think there's so much to be learned and discussed
Mm-hmm.
about self-determination theory. I mean, it just and the
Mm-hmm.
human connection, right? The ability to motivate. What
Mm-hmm.
is it that motivates us? And those three things to me of autonomy, connectedness, and competence
Mm-hmm.
are just foundational and key.
Mm-hmm. Um, it's interesting. I go back to the greatness video, David Marquette, when I
Mhm.
was thinking because when we create that condition to where we can engage people at that level, right? Because we have a finite amount of time in this physical body of ours, right? And one of my goals is to so people can get unstuck and unlocked and just live their best life.
Yeah.
And I think I there is so much that we leave on the table when we don't do that in the work setting as well, because we've got these limiting beliefs that hold us back on stuff. But the greatness video, what he was talking about at the end, he said, when you've got what the condition he created in his situation 235 active thinking, all this stuff, right? Literally, you've tapped in and engaged in it's a tsunami.
Yeah.
You literally don't stand a chance again
No.
against a team like that.
Yeah.
And so, my wish for everyone is to create the condition with their teams to where literally you don't need to hold them back.
Yeah.
They're firing on all cylinders and they're doing amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do it throughout the entire organization if that's not your scope of responsibility.
Yeah.
Start where you're at.
Yeah.
Shine a light on it.
Yeah.
So,
It's the Ted Lasso
yes,
team.
yeah, please, please.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you, thank you, thank you. So this has been Leadership Soundbites with Roko and Michelle. And until next time, please like, share, subscribe. Let me know topics, let us know topics, and I look forward to another chat. Thank
Me
you.
too. Bye-bye.
Bye.